Okay, let's take a journey deep inside your own body. Imagine, right now, there's this bustling, microscopic city inside you, and at the very heart of it, in a place called the pancreas, are some of the most sophisticated factories you could ever imagine. Today, we're going to meet their tiny, brilliant workers and really get to the bottom of their incredible story. This is the story of your beta cells.
Just look at that number for a second. 1 billion. That's about how many individual living insulin factories are humming away inside your pancreas as we speak. And these aren't just, simple cells. They are intelligent micro-machines that are managing your body's entire energy supply. Seriously, their story, how they work so well and what happens when they fail, that is the story of diabetes. All right, so let's properly introduce the hero of our story today, the beta cell. Think of it as your personal insulin factory. And trust me, understanding what it does and how it works, that's the key to really grasping metabolic health on a whole new level.
So what is a beta cell really? Well, it's kind of a master of three traits. First up, it's a sensor. It's constantly tasting your blood for sugar or glucose. Second, it's a factory, whipping up the exact right amount of insulin based on that reading. And third, it's a delivery service, storing that insulin and releasing it with just incredible precision. And it does all of this in one single microscopic package. Amazing, right?
What's so fascinating here is how important your body thinks these cells are. They don't just float around randomly. Nope, they're all clustered together in about 1 million tiny neighborhoods called the islets of Langerhans. Now get this, these islands only make up about 1 to 2% of your whole pancreas, but they get a whopping 10 to 15% of its blood flow. That's like a tiny critical command center in a huge city getting most of the power. It just goes to show you how absolutely vital their job is.
And the way they work is just elegant. So picture this. You eat something. The glucose from your food hits your bloodstream and shows up at the beta cell. It goes inside, and when the cell metabolizes it, that creates energy. This energy then acts like a switch, changing the cell's electrical charge. That in turn opens a gate for calcium to rush in. And finally, that rush of calcium is the big signal, the cue to release its stored insulin. It's this perfect little molecular dance that happens millions of times a day, all to keep your energy perfectly balanced.
But what happens when this perfect system starts to break down? Well, this is where our story takes a turn. This is the central conflict of diabetes. And it turns out there are two main ways these absolutely essential factories can begin to fail. So on one side, you've got what happens in type 1 diabetes. This is basically a case of mistaken identity. The body's own immune system gets confused and attacks and destroys the beta cells. Then, on the other side, you have type 2 diabetes, and that's a completely different story. It's a story of exhaustion. We're talking years of metabolic overwork and burnout. So you see, they're two very different paths, but they lead to the exact same problem: not enough insulin.
Yeah, this visual is pretty stark. In type 1, that autoimmune attack is just devastatingly effective. Think about this. By the time symptoms even start to show up and a person gets diagnosed, around 70 to 80% of their insulin factories are already gone, permanently destroyed. The body just can't compensate for that level of loss, and that's exactly why insulin is needed right away and for life.
Okay, now let's compare that to type 2. It's a very different picture. Here, the process is much more gradual. It's more of a slow burn. By the time someone's diagnosed, about 40 to 50% of their beta cell function is gone. And notice I said function, not the cells themselves. They haven't all been destroyed, but the ones that are left are just overworked, exhausted, and not working right. And this is a really critical distinction, because it means there's a window of opportunity.
And here's the really cruel irony of the whole situation. As the beta cells struggle and blood sugar starts to rise, that extra sugar in the blood actually becomes toxic to the remaining cells. It's a concept called glucotoxicity. The analogy I like is, it's like asking a firefighter to work in a room that's just full of smoke. The very environment they're trying to fix is actually harming them. And this creates this devastating downward spiral where the problem just keeps feeding on itself.
So if that's the crisis, then what's the solution? Well, this is where we pivot to the rescue mission. This is all about understanding how we can support the factories that are still working, take some of the pressure off, and really protect what's left.
Okay, every single one of these strategies is designed to do one thing: reduce the workload on your beta cells. It's that simple. Things like weight management and regular exercise, they make your body's other cells more sensitive to insulin, so your beta cells don't have to pump out as much. It's kind of like making your customers more efficient, so the factory doesn't have to ship as many products.
And then you've got quality sleep and stress management. Those help lower hormones like cortisol that mess with beta cell function, basically giving them a calmer, more productive place to work.
And listen, this is honestly one of the most hopeful messages in all of diabetes care. Especially in those early stages, a lot of those struggling beta cells aren't actually dead. They're just dormant, exhausted from being overworked. And we can actually measure this. There's a test called a C-peptide test that measures how much insulin your own body is making, giving us a direct window into your beta cell function. And it can show that when you take away that intense metabolic stress early on, those exhausted cells can literally wake up and start to recover. This is why taking action early is just so incredibly powerful.
For the longest time, the whole conversation has been about preservation, saving what's left. But what if we could go a step further? What if we could actually rebuild the factories that have been lost? That single question is driving some of the absolute most exciting research in science today.
Okay, this number is, well, it's just breathtaking. A landmark study that came out in 2024 showed that a combo of two drugs was able to get human beta cells to replicate by a staggering 700% in lab studies. This was the first time a drug treatment has shown it could significantly increase the number of adult human beta cells. I mean, this isn't science fiction. It's a real result, and it has blown open a whole new frontier in diabetes research.
And get this isn't some far-off 50 years from now dream. The pace of discovery is really picking up. Right now, today, we have powerful tools for preservation, but human trials for these regeneration drugs, they're expected to start in just the next couple of years. Then you have stem cell therapies, where new beta cells are grown in a lab and transplanted. Those are already in clinical trials and could see approval not long after that. And even further down the line, scientists are looking at gene editing. The future is shifting from just managing the problem to actually restoring what was lost.
So while we're all waiting for those amazing breakthroughs to arrive, our mission today is crystal clear. The most powerful tool you have in your hands right now is preservation. Every single beta cell you protect today is one you won't need to worry about regenerating tomorrow. And the key to keeping them healthy? It's all about stability. Stable glucose levels mean less stress, less of that toxic environment we talked about, and just a much healthier, happier workforce of beta cells.
But here's the thing. How do you really know if your glucose is stable? Well, understanding your own personal patterns is everything. And that's where some of the modern tools can be a huge help. My Health Gheware, for instance, uses AI to analyze your glucose data from a CGM. It helps you connect the dots and see exactly which of your habits create that stable environment we're aiming for. It really lets you optimize your support for these amazing little factories, day in and day out. So let's end with this thought. We've gone on quite a journey today, right? From understanding how these billion factories work, to why they fail, to how we can protect them, and even how we might one day rebuild them. If this science keeps moving forward at this pace, the entire definition of what it means to live with diabetes could fundamentally change. I just want to leave you with this question. What does that future look like to you? And just a quick final reminder. All of this content is for educational purposes, just to help you understand the amazing biology at play. It is absolutely not medical advice. For any personalized guidance or changes to your treatment plan, please always consult with your own healthcare provider. All right, thanks for watching.